Hey, thank you for joining me. It is day 16, and yesterday, day 15, I spent quite a bit of time watching videos on how to work through a state machine. I think the biggest thing that I was looking for is what are the best practices? What are the ways to set up a state machine that's going to make the most sense for what I'm doing? So, the state machine is a way that you can actually set different states within your application, within your game, excuse me, and with those different nodes, you can put the specific logic for while you're in the state. So let's talk about some pretty cool ways that you can use state machine. So you can have an initial state of something like idle. So let's talk about a 2D platformer game. With a state machine, going from idle, you have a few things that you can do. Now, in some games, let's just talk about Mario. It takes a little bit of time to get to maximum speed. So you have to start walking, and then it gains momentum as you go. So if you have the feather, you can't just go from idle to fly. So with state machines, you can manage that. Because state machine idle, you're going to have your logic and you're going to be able to say the things that you can do while you're in idle. Now, then at that point, you're moving and you're capturing momentum. And so maybe with the Mario scenario, you're gaining momentum, you're gaining speed, and eventually when you reach a certain threshold, you can jump and you will be in a flying state instead of simply a jumping state. So that's cool, but how does that actually help with the game that I'm building right now? So trying to apply this scenario, let's take a look at what I'm actually building, right? So right now, let's talk about the tower. The tower sits idle and the tower shoots, or the tower is idle, or it's attacking. So there's really two states, right? It's idle, which says that I have nobody within my range that's meeting the criteria of who I'm going to attack. So remember, 2 days ago on day 14, we implemented the furthest enemy, the shortest enemy as your target, or the lowest health, the highest health, or whoever's progressed further on the track. So maybe you're like, oh crap, they're almost done. Even though, and that's who your tower is going to be attacking. So as we set up the specific stats, the specific characteristics of our different towers, we can leverage that logic within our idle logic to say who we're attacking or who we're targeting. And then once we have a target, we're officially attacking. We're going into the attacking mode. So when I no longer have a target, then I'm idle again. I'm just sitting around waiting for something to happen, such as if I'm waiting for someone to bring a package to me, but once I have that package, I have to do a thing with it. So it's really, really, really cool to think about the application on that. But between idle and attacking, I got to thinking about it a bit and how I'm actually going to implement this. And I'm not really happy with what I landed with. But again, to keep in the spirit of keeping things a little shorter, I did spend too much time today working on this. Well, it's 8:11 p.m. right now, and I started a little after 5. So I have spent way too much time on this today. And it's all because I was trying to think about the best way to do it. But let me talk through what makes the most sense. So, and why. Now, in this game, when we want to attack, we have a little bit of a thing we call fire rate, which we have to wait for to flip over in order for us to shoot that next bullet out. So for our base, let me go to let me pull up some examples and we can talk through this a little bit. So our basic tower uses the basic tower resource. Let's get into that. And the fire rate is 1.5. Now remember, it's 1.5 seconds. So every 1.5 seconds, we're going to shoot. Well, that's where I have a little bit of a mistake in place. So what I have right now is when they're idle. So let me pull it up real quick to show you what a state looks like. We're not running the timer. And that makes sense. We don't want to run the timer when we're idle. Now, when we are in attacking state, we are running the timer. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start the timer and then we want to fire. So why is that a problem? It's a problem because fire rate says every 1.5 seconds. My timer, which it is up at 1.5, I promise. It gets reset as part of the tower. Let's go into that real quick. Tower controller, Godot. And there we are. So our wait time does get set to the 1.5. However, once an enemy is targeted, once we have somebody in our crosshairs, we have a current target, then 1.5 seconds later we shoot. I think that's a little flawed. So here's what I'm thinking. And this is what I'm going to move it to, because I want StateMachine to really work for us. I'm not super thrilled with StateMachine as an idle and attacking because I already had that. There's not enough state change with what I see here to truly have value. What this is saying is if I have a current target, attack. I had an if condition in there that said, if I have a current target, start attacking. And I mean, I could throw a timer. I could use the timer, and in there I just say if I have a current target, attack, right? So why do I need this extra overhead? So let's figure out a way to use it. So this is what I'm thinking. So let's think about how this realistically would work. My idle state would be locked and loaded. I'm just going to use that word. I love it. But effectively, the only time that we can attack, that we can fire, we can shoot, we can throw our stones is when we are locked and loaded. Consistency. Anyways, but what happens when we attack? So, this is where I'm thinking I need to have a reload state. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? All right. So, with a reload state, when you're done attacking, you can reload. Now, why am I not able to? Oh, okay, that's fine. Whatever. We're going to wiggle that way. Cool. So, when I am done attacking, I will reload. Now, this is the interesting thing as well, because thinking hard about this one, I believe that I can keep this back and forth. I totally can. And why is that? So I reload. After I reload, I'm locked and loaded. And at this point, I'm not going to reload again. I'm going to reload one time, unless we have some conditionals later that say, oh, something happened and you're no longer loaded. Go reload again. Or the next 3 reloads were a failure. Whatever. That is not in scope right now. But I don't know. My mind is going crazy. But after I'm done locked and loaded, when I have a current target, I'm going to immediately send them into attacking. Now, we no longer have a timer involved. The timer is down here in reload. It takes 1.5 seconds to be ready to fire. But you don't reload and immediately go into attacking. Locked and loaded is going to tell us you have a target. Now, why am I keeping this back and forth? Because when I get into attacking, I want to take a brief moment and say, hey, You say I have a target, but is that still the case? So remember, there are multiple towers on the field. So there is a chance that when we fire, it may never get to the target, or it may try getting to the target and immediately it's just in a fail state. So we need to give ourselves a moment to reestablish a target if that's the case. So such as, I'm going to lift my weapon to fire at the target. Oh, but it's already done. It's at 0 health. Why am I going to fire on it again? Let's get back to a locked and loaded state. So that is what I would like to implement for a state manager. Now, I think that this is just a good scenario to walk through. Is it necessary right now? No, it's not. Because I can go back to what I had before, and I've learned what I've learned with State Manager. It's really cool. So I do want to walk you through that real quick, because I believe that it is something to see. I think that it's something that's pretty cool. Now, I'm not super crazy about the logic, but we're going to watch that and we're going to come back. So if we get into our code here, and I'm half tempted to get into VS Code. I'm getting a little annoyed with this interface too, but this is me learning and me becoming very opinionated about this stuff. So if you like it, I appreciate that, and I'm happy for you. So as we're looking at what we have the tower. So the tower is the main controller of everything. That is going to be on the tower scene. And as part of the tower scene, we have the tower, and this is what's controlling everything. It's a little overloaded. We'll figure that one out as we go. So on here, we have our attack timer and we have our state machine. I mean, those are the two important things for what I want to talk about today. I'm going to look in here and just kind of point out a couple other things, and it may not really be necessary for the conversation right now, but we'll definitely be getting back to it, and it's going to keep it fresh in my mind. I'm ready to go get dinner. But let's talk about this real quick. So the first thing that this does is, because we have the tower here, it is officially establishing, it's setting everything up. It's readying itself up. One thing to know real quick is, when you have tower here, when you call ready, if state machine calls ready as well, state machine goes first. And then if idle calls ready, idle goes first. So the children go before the parents. Fine. I mean, that's the order of things. So we have to work with that. But that makes things a little more difficult for how state machine can be done, be a little more independent. I mean, I would love it if it was more independent. I want to be able to set state machine and not have to worry about sending self in there. That'll come at some point. But for now, at this point, we call state machine, we call start, and we're passing in that initial, the value of the parent, which is who we're on right now. The few things that really do change is, when we have a collision, remember we talked about this a little bit in there, and we're in idle, then we are going into attacking mode. This is where we change our state, and I'm going to go into State Manager, and you're going to see how all of this kind of goes in flux. And if we're already... So we have if it's an enemy node, we throw it in there. If we have current target, if we didn't have a current target before, we do now, and we go into attack. Okay. When they exit, if we don't have a target, we go into idle mode. Cool. So this is very much assuming that the state of everybody who's within our collision zone, within the area, is accounted for. Rather, if it's ones that have been accounted, that have been added, and that have been removed. we do consider that as part of refreshing. So this is something that I ran a little into issues with a little bit. So if Tower A and Tower B are both on the same target, you don't want to start shooting at Tower or with Tower A if Tower B has just destroyed it. So you want to know that it's not there anymore. So we do have frequent checks to see if all of the enemies that we have are valid. Check to say, hey, do they exist anymore? Are they within range of you? I mean, are these guys that you actually want to? And then, of course, we do set our target. And the logic in this select best enemy has changed a little bit. I was finding that after the game was running for a little bit, it would just kind of fall over sideways and they just stopped shooting. It was a little embarrassing on a couple videos that I had to restart because the shooting just stopped. The game was broken. So I wasn't happy. So did a little research, figured that one out. So the other piece on here is, here's the timeout. So remember, when we move into attacking, we turn the timer back on. When we leave attacking, we turn the timer off. And then when we enter idle, we turn it off as well. So redundancy, it works. It does fine. But when the timer goes off, this is where the magic happens. If we are not attacking, we're not going to do anything. So if the timer is accidentally left on, if we threw another state in there that didn't follow, let's not do anything. We don't want to. But if we do have a target, but if we are in attacking, let's make sure that we have a valid target. And if we don't, well, we need to reset the current target and we need to make sure that we understand, who's within our range. So we do a refresh. The next thing we're going to do is, because we set it here null, there's a chance that it may stay null. I mean, there definitely is a chance, again, if Tower B destroyed it before us. And the next thing that we're going to do is, if the target does not exist, we're going to go back to idle and we're going to kick out of here because there's no longer firing. But if everything works out the way that it should, we're going to create that bullet. And the logic behind the bullet is that it is following. So it is just going to continuously go after that enemy until, remember, the enemy doesn't exist anymore, which with some of the findings on here, I'm going to refine that logic too, because we're always learning, right? Let's talk about the state manager. So I want to go straight down to the actual states, and then we'll talk about how they're actually managed within this. So for now, the tower, those are the only things that we actually have states on. So I just moved the logic. Here we go. Inside of state, we have a base for what a state looks like. Now, I threw StateMachine on there. That was something that I saw in one of the videos. I don't need it, so I whatever. I'll get rid of it one of these times. Anyways, this is very simple. It says you will have these 4 properties, or you will have these. You will have enter, exit. You will have update and physics update, right? You will also have an owner node. So remember, we passed in self. It's going to allow us to know who the top level is, the tower. Excuse me. So, and then we, of course, have our class name. So this is a basic class. We talked about this before. When you build something up like this, stage, good Lord, you can find it within your specific nodes. So we've officially created a class. Now, forget about this for a second. Let's move on to an actual implementation of this. So how are we using class? Let's go to idle. I mean, they're both very simple in what they are, and that's why I said I don't think this is necessary for what I'm doing. So now I'm trying to overcomplicate or complicate in a way that makes it work for this game, for science, right? So the idle state has, again, a little bit of logic. Effectively, what it's saying, remember we had owner node on Okay, sorry. Extend state. I should probably start there. This is a state. Okay, let's start at the top. I'm jumping a little ahead because I'm excited. So when we call enter, and you will see where this is called explicitly, the first thing that we're going to do is make sure that attack timer is not running. As you're sitting idle, you're not shooting. You're just not shooting. You ain't doing a thing. All right. Now we have the update call. When we have an update state, when we get into update, we're going to be checking to see if the owner node current target, so if we have a current target and the current target is valid. So if Tower A and Tower B both had current target at this and Tower B destroyed target, Tower A may still have current target lingering around. So Tower B has already cleared this out, but Tower A, for some reason, they wouldn't be in idle state, but just in case, anyways, that scenario shouldn't happen. I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent. What I'm trying to say is we're an idle, and this idle is trying to move us into attacking. I'm staring at the other screen, and my code is over here on the other side. Anyways, we'll wake up. So idle is always trying to check to see if we have a target. If we have found a target, if we have established a current target, we need to get ourselves in attacking mode. So I believe we saw main controller. Let's get in here. Main controller is not moving us into attacking mode. The only way that we can get into attacking mode is through the idle state. So you saw the graph that I was drawing a little bit. I was showing the little arrows. The only way to get to a state of reload is by expelling your ammunition, by having none in the chamber, best way to explain it. So when you are done attacking, you will move into a reload state. In the game that we have now, when there is no one being attacked, no one being targeted, we need to be idle. But as soon as we see a target, we need to move into attack mode. We need to get ready. That's what this logic is doing right here. And good Lord, I need to clean myself up. Anyways, and then we have the attacking state. So the opposite logic is right here. If we do not have a current target, then we need to move into idle state. And what this is doing here, this is the logic that I was explaining earlier, that if we have a target and it's not a valid target, we need to clear it out. But more importantly, we need to refresh the targets. We need to refresh them each time that we end up clearing it, or we find that anytime we have some sort of state change a change when it comes to the list of enemies or targets, we need to shake things up a little. We need to make sure we just need to do a quick sweep of validation. I don't care if there's hundreds, it's going to be a little bit of a hit, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot better than continuously having to go over these hundreds in a different way, or by them being null and bad and possibly throwing exceptions or just completely screwing the game up because we're not cleaning up after ourselves. That's all this is doing. So I've explained that one too many times. I could stop right there. But let's just look at the two other things that we have. So we have an enter and an exit. So when we enter this state, we're going to go ahead and start the timer. When we exit the state, we're going to stop it. Very, very simple logic on there. That's a state. So let's check the management of the state. So we have the state class. We have the children that are consuming the state. So we have the attacking and the idle. Let's go up to our actual state machine. So this is where the management of the state is. First things first, we have a default of idle. That's fine. The next thing that we have is our start. So you remember when we ready up, we're going to call the StateMachine dot start. I did have it as ready, and it was like, no, it's a reserved word. Well, underscore ready and ready are reserved words. That was a fun one to learn. Anyways, we're going to call start, and we're going to pass self because we need to know the node. We're going to set the owner of the node in here because every time we change state, if we need a new object, we need to let them know, or sorry, if we need a new node, we just need to pass and let them know who the owner is. So we need to be able to pass that stuff through. We're going to go into all of the children. We're going to give it to all 4 of these, so they're going to know who the owner is. And then we're going to change the state to idle. So changing the state is our way of doing the transition. So we have a few things that we do. So this is, if we have a current state, we're going to go ahead and get out of it. We're going to change the current, so that's the exit method that's on there. We're going to change the current state to the node. So it's going to look through here in the tree and the children. And it's going to be based on the name that we have, which is idle, and it's going to be a state object. And then we're going to go ahead and call enter. So that allows us to end the previous state. So for the attacking, we're going to stop the timer, and then we're going to go into our other state, which is idle, which also stops the timer. So, and then from there, we have our process, physics process, and current state name. So that's effectively what everything looks like when we are doing everything in our state through state management. This was pretty cool. I mean, it really, again, this does not really feel awesome for this project, but some of the videos that I watched, again, kind of talking about moving from one state, such as idle, where you can enable a user to start walking, to start running, to jump, to what if you're falling from the sky? You may be able to double jump, but let's just give it the benefit of the doubt, or remove that variable. You're falling, you can't jump again. You might be able to twist and move and punch and kick, but you're not jumping again. If you're on the ground, you can jump, you can run and do stuff. If you run, you can do an extra bit of run and you can give yourself that boost to fly after a bit. But those individual state files, being able to split all of the logic out of the controller, that's huge. I love being able to break things down in ways that absolutely make it easy to read. But again, for what we have here, it's not making it easy to read. It's splitting out very simplistic things. You saw it was like just a few lines per state. So I'm hoping to absolutely blow this up at some point and see how it can make the state management system. I keep saying state management, the StateMachine, make the StateMachine really work for me. I really want it to be something that's going to work for me. I may have to wait a little bit. I may have to wait until maybe the next game, or I could probably find a different way to do it in this one. But anyways, that was just a quick overview. I may have fat fingered something while we were doing this, but with the StateMachine in play, everything's working fine. Also, if you watch the previous videos, I did fix the currency, by the way. So the currency does reset back to 100. What I found is I was calling the update currency. So when the game got reset, that is a global, good Lord. That is a global variable. And the global variable was holding onto the money. So if you had, say, 400 in currency, when you hit start game, it would add another 100, so you'd start with 500. I mean, as a player, sounds like a cheat code. I love it. But that's not how this should have been designed to be. So, create a new method. We're resetting the currency back to a specific dollar amount, which is 100. And I imagine as we build up different levels, and we're going to build up different waves, as we build up different levels and different things that you can do, I would imagine that the starting currency would be different. Maybe the map would have 0 towers on it. You have to put down the first towers in order to protect well, the emptiness of nothing that we have down there, whatever that base is going to be eventually. Anyways, I hope you really enjoyed this. I hope it was informational. It's really just been two days worth of me staring at the computer, playing around with it, and still not super satisfied with my end result. But I definitely did learn something about StateMachine, state management. It was really freaking cool. So I hope you have a great night, and we'll plan on seeing you tomorrow. Thank you.